Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and thank you to Adam Ingram for the opportunity to debate this important subject. Anne McTaggart said that many of us will have family members with connections to the industry. In the 1841 census for Muir of Bannockburn, there are 328 Stevensons living in that area, and almost all of them are miners. And one of these was James Stevenson, who was my great-great-grandfather. His father, in turn, John Stevenson, probably died in the 1830s in a mining accident. But, of course, in those days, they didn't even bother to record deaths in the mining industry. So I shall probably never get to the reality of that one. So it touches families, perhaps quite unlikely families, you might think, right across Scotland. I wanted just to touch on some experience I had as a minister when I visited the Nith at the request of the fishing interests on the Nith. And what I found was a fascinating coalition of interest with a huge environmental benefit between the open cast mining industry and the salmon fishing industry, with the need to open up ground to get access to coal in the area. There was a need to reroute the Nith as a river. The consequence of doing that and restoring it has been to dramatically improve the situation of pollution in the Nith, to give it a much more effective environment for salmon. The consequence of this is 4 times as many salmon now reach the headwaters of the Nith as before the open cast coal mining industry. And I think when we think about the coal mining industry and other industries that can be polluting, we actually see opportunities for these industries to work for the benefit of communities, not simply the employment that they give, substantial as that unquestionably is, but environmental benefits as well. And I think, too, in capturing via carbon capture and storage the carbon dioxide that comes from the combustion of coal, we are playing to a local, secure supply of energy, which is to be preferred to putting ourselves in the hands of importing, as the UK government appear to be wanting to bring wood from across the world, importing coal from across the world, importing gas from across the world. I think it's very clear that being self-sufficient in energy is important. And carbon capture has huge economic opportunities as a technology that we can export, but also because we have the depleted oil reservoirs in the North Sea into which we can pump our own and others' CO2. And we have, in particular, in the now abandoned Miller field, a particularly good example of where we can put our CO2, because it was a sour gas field, the oil field. The oil that came out was acidic, therefore the pipes that go out to the Miller field are resistant to acidic corrosion to a greater degree than other pipes to oil fields. And, of course, carbonic acid is mildly acidic, so it's a perfect first field that we might contemplate using with a reduced cost of doing so. This is an important debate, I think, to the issue of rail access. I did a quick sum. If it's £4 a tonne, that's £9,200 per train. And that kind of puts into context the cost of that. The rail network is a national asset that should be bound in Scottish terms by the public body's duties in the Climate Change Act, therefore saying that they should give due intent to carrying off freight on the rail network, if only that was the case more generally. And I hope that we do see a more effective regime for carrying freight on our rail network. It has a big role to play, Presiding Officer.